What we have here today is a 2013 Subaru WRX. What we're doing is we're going to be doing an E85 sensor conversion and injector upgrade and fuel pump upgrade for the COM system. First component we have here is the E85 sensor. This is actually what tells the computer how much E85 is running in the fuel system, as well as also comes with fuel lines and the plugs that adapt into the factory harness. These are larger injectors, so the larger injectors need to be installed in the vehicle for E85 because E85 takes 1.3 the amount of E85 compared to gasoline. So what COM's also given us is pigtail adapters. These are direct plug and play into the factory harness. The reason why COM has done this is a very common problem with injector upgrades on Subaru owners is, especially when they do it themselves or someone's doing soldering for the first time, they do it incorrectly and can cause catastrophic failure while dynoing it. So they've gone ahead and made pigtails that direct plug and play and make the whole swap much easier. Next up, we have the fuel pressure sensor. We need to have a fuel pressure sensor when upgrading the fuel system so the computer can see as many parameters as possible in order to make the tuning much easier. The last component of our E85 swap is going to be the upgraded fuel pump. The same reason for having the upgraded fuel pump is the same reason for the fuel injectors. You want to have a larger fuel pump so you can pump more E85 into the system so you can keep up with the demand. This particular unit is a 340 liter per hour fuel pump, which should supply us more than enough to all the way up to about 400 horsepower. So before working on any fuel system, always disconnect the battery. Always disconnect the negative, not the positive. Disconnect it and always leave it to discharge for at least a minute before starting work on the fuel system. So we're just going to remove the negative terminal, take that off, and then also undo this. Okay, we're just going to take this battery off now, try to get it out of our way because we're going to have to install a couple sensors in this area. So we loosen off the positive. We've allowed the battery to discharge so it doesn't arc out. I'll go ahead and remove that. That's out of the way. And we're going to remove the bracket now. Got a little fandangle it a little bit and it's out. Okay, the next step is removing the fuel lines. For Subarus, all of them, you're going to need these special toolkit. They're not connected. This is the key point. You need these special tools. So it can't be the ones that are connected like that. It has to be two separate pieces like this in this exact size. Okay, so you just put it in there, slide it in all the way, make sure to push this forward, spin it all the way around. Next piece, you stick it in there. And okay, we're just gonna remove this line right here. This is not a fuel line, this is just an air line. So you just wanna break it loose. Okay, we just wanna undo this bolt right here so that we can wiggle it. That should allow us to wiggle it to get the bracket in. Okay, this one's a little bit more trickier to get to. You get the same trick as the last one. Put that in there. And then get the next one. And put that in there. Fiddle with it a little bit. And you push in and out. And it relieves that pressure. Okay, now we're going to be installing the bracket for the E85 sensor. So we have to remove this bolt first. So we have to open up this fuse box to access a bolt behind here. So you push these tabs in, push up, off we come. Okay, what we need to do next is loosen off this bolt, then loosen off this bolt. And that allows us some movement in the fuse box. Okay, so we're going to install the E85 sensor. This is the factory bolt inside the fuse box. Goes in there, and we're going to put it in that bottom bolt next to the battery. Okay, so we take the E85 sensor, we line it up with the slotted hole, put it behind the fuse box, and then insert the screw. So we got it finger threaded in there. So now we're just gonna go and tighten it. You don't need to use an electric tool, but whatever you have is handy is fine. So we'll tighten at it. Make sure this is lined up and parallel. And don't forget to tighten up the bolts you loosened up earlier. Okay, so next up we have to run the E85 line. It always gets run off the return line. On the WRX, the return line is the bottom one. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this out of the way. It just snaps out like that. That one snaps out of the way like that. And then that's your return line right there. So we're taking this line out. Okay, we're just gonna undo this fuel line right here for the E85 line. So we just gotta pull this off. And fuel lines will always be hard to get off. Grab a alligator grip pliers and go ahead and just twist like that and pull, and it should come off just like that. Okay, so these are the fuel lines that were supplied with the E85 sensor. We just have to run one to here like that and the other one right here. Okay, so we're just gonna put the new hose on there with the supplied fitting. Just slide it on and then tighten it up. Make sure not to over tighten. It's a fuel line. It's only max 80 PSI. It's not a million PSI. Okay, so now that we've connected the line to the return to the fuel tank, we want to put the first one right here, push it all the way in, and clip. Make sure it's sturdy, and move on to the next one. Okay, and then we connect this line that goes back to the engine on this side. Push in, push the clip in, make sure it's attached, and there we go. Okay, and now we attach this fitting, go under there, into the return, and clip in, make sure it's on there. Okay, so here's the plugs for the E85 sensor. This plug goes into the E85 sensor. This plug goes into the oxygen sensor. And this plug goes into the TGV system. Okay, this is the location of the TGV plug, right at the back of the intake on the driver's side. And this is the location of the TGV plug. This is what you have to unplug in order to get that bypass plugged in. So we got this out. It's very hard to get out. You need to squeeze this and pull. And sometimes you need to use tools like we did in this case to squeeze this first to get it out. Okay, so this part is ready to connect. So we're gonna do that now. So we're just gonna lead it in here and put one end in, the TGV. It's a very tight fit. This is a good situation where it's good to have small hands. I wish I had small hands myself. And then you put the factory plug in this side. Make sure you hear the click. Make sure it's all the way in. And there we go. That part's done. Okay, next up we're gonna attach this. First we have to remove one of these bolts. We're gonna discard this. We're gonna use the supplied Allen bolt. Put that in there first. For this bolt, it is a 6mm, which we have here. Always try to thread these in by finger. And then now we have the plug for the E85 sensor. We go ahead and plug it in here. And there we go. Okay, so now we're gonna start putting everything back together. Put the evap hose back on. Grab your pliers. Reattach that. Okay, and now at this point, if you purchase the optional fuel pressure sensor adapter, this is the time to actually install it. So it goes on the feed line for the line, so we're gonna go ahead and put this together now. Okay, so what we have to do basically is this piece goes on either side. It doesn't matter, whichever your setup allows. And then you have to plug up the other side. This is here, so you could possibly put a fuel pressure gauge on there, but we're gonna go ahead and seal that up. Okay, so we wanna go ahead and always use some sort of sealer. We're gonna use some pipe thread sealer, just the goopy stuff. Just put a little bit, just a little bit. And go ahead and put that in. Okay, so we just go ahead and tighten that up. It doesn't have to be super tight, just as long as it's snug in there, you're good. Okay, same thing on our pressure sensor. We want a little bit of goop just to prevent leaks. Do not get it here in that hole. If you get in that hole, the sensor won't work. Okay, and then we just go ahead and thread the pressure sensor. Should be good. Okay, and now this goes into the feed line. This side just clips in there. Hear the click. And then that side, make sure you see that cool little sign. And it's on. And we're gonna start putting everything back together. Put this bracket back together. Okay, so we're gonna use the other TGV plug for the fuel pressure sensor. To get to that, we're gonna have to remove the intake pipe. This one has an aftermarket one, but you will still have to remove the intake pipe if it had a factory airbox. So we go ahead and undo these. And off it comes. Okay, so we're just gonna get this plug out. We have to click it in. It can be very hard to get in, especially in an older car. This is what's called the push-pull method. Doesn't always work, but it did this time. Okay, so now we just have to plug the plug in. So one's male, one's female. So you plug the female, and then we plug this one into the sensor again, and we have our fuel pressure hooked up. Okay, so we're just gonna run this line. I like to run it along this intake. You can be run anywhere you'd like. This is where I like to run it. And then you just plug it into the sensor. And then keep in mind, leave it to the very last step to cable tie this out of the way, because you don't know what else you're gonna be moving. Okay, we're gonna do the fuel pump now. So we're gonna pop this seat up. So this is on the left and right side only. You pull on this and the seat comes up. Make sure not to pull on the seat while you're pulling this outwards. So just like that, and the seat comes up. The fuel pump is on the passenger side. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove these Phillips screws. Just a normal screwdriver, not a pointy one. And we just pull this off. Peel that away. And then before we can pull this away, push that in, unplug that, give us some room, and push that through so we can push that away. And that exposes the fuel pump. We got 3 connections here we have to all undo. So the way we undo these, we just push in on these little clips, push in on that, and pull. Same thing for every other one. Push in, pull. That one, we're going to have to remove this first. So these are 8 mils. You just have to undo this bracket before you can remove that last line. So we'll just undo these 8 mils. Let's pull that one away. And that's all the connections. Let's get a leak a little fuel. When we're all done, we're gonna make sure to clean up this fuel. We don't want the whole car smelling of gasoline when we're done. Just gotta remove the remaining few 8 mil bolts. Okay, now that all the bolts are out, we're just gonna remove the top hat, not spilling the fuel everywhere. And now we remove the fuel pump assembly. Be careful of the level sensor. Okay, so make sure not to spill fuel inside the car. That stuff will damage your interior. Okay, so today we're gonna take a Subaru 2013 fuel pump module. We're gonna show you how to install an AEM 340 liter per hour fuel pump into it. Okay, so first step, we're gonna unplug these two plugs here that go to the level sensor. One and the other one goes to the actual fuel pump itself. There we go. Okay, so the next step is you have to take all of these, clip these upwards like that. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of them. So all 4 have to be clipped up before you can pull the entire top hat off. We're just gonna jam a bunch of tools in here just to get all the clips up, because it's the only way to do it without breaking it. And there we go. After much struggle, these are incredibly hard to remove. These clips are very hard without breaking them. As you can see, we used about 4 different flat tools to get it out. But you can see right there, that's the fuel pump right there. That's what we need to remove. Okay, so first thing you have to do is undo this earth that's at the bottom of the fuel pump. You have to pull this out in order to actually get the fuel pump out. And thread it out there, and there you go. Okay, next up we're gonna unplug this plug right here at the top of the pump. We're just gonna push that tab in and just wedge it up, and out she comes. Okay, so as you can see on the new pump, there are tabs on either side right there. So we have to let it go from here. So they're very big tabs too, so you have to bend them quite outwards. So you jam something small in there, and you try to get that out, and there's another one on the other side that's kind of hidden. It's kind of in there, and you really have to get them wide or else it won't come out. And then sometimes you need to use a pick. It's not easy. The key point is getting this out without breaking it. So once you have the clips out, it should just come out, and there's your fuel pump. That's the factory one. Okay, so you can see the 2 clips. One's there, one's there. Those are the ones you're trying to bend outwards. So we have to get this off of the factory pump, and that has to be transferred over to the AEM pump, just like that. So always the AEM fuel pump comes with the a new O-ring. So pull that old one out. So this is the new O-ring for the AEM kit. You get the lube that came with the kit. Make sure to lube it up. Then you put the shaft in the hole. Slide it on there. It's nice and tight. And there we go. So, okay, so now we just got to snap this in there. It lines up only one way. So it'll only go in one way. So you just put it in. And when you hear a click, it means it's in. So this is the new filter that's supplied with the fuel pump, and you must use this O-ring, this lock pin. This lock pin goes on here. It goes through here and then it snaps on there. You must put this in. If this comes off inside the car, catastrophic engine failure. Make sure to remove the rubber thing or else you will struggle needlessly. Now you can put it on the fuel pump. Push down on it, make sure it's as far down as possible. So you have to put this lock pin on here. I'm using some pliers, or lock ring I should say. You have to push it on. Make sure it's actually on. Force it all the way flush. And make sure it's on there. Make sure it doesn't come off easily. And we're good. So luckily AEM supplied us with a fuel pump that's compatible with the factory pump plug. So we don't have to solder in a new plug. We can just squeeze her in there, snap in, there you go. And don't forget to put the earthing strap back where it belongs. Make sure it stays in there. And then the very last step, which now is incredibly easy, put the entire assembly in the case And when you hear the click, it's in. And there you go. That is, oh, and then finally, oh, sorry. Plug your level sensor in. Don't forget that. But now we have a high flow fuel pump installed in a Subaru.